and suggestions expressed on the following program are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily endorsed by KRMG, Cox Media Group Incorporated, or the program sponsors. This following program is sponsored by Causeway, LLC. Information in this broadcast is not intended as an investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and Cox Media Group Tulsa are not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and Cox Media Group Tulsa makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk. Gather knowledge in the world of cryptocurrency right now on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's news and talk. Welcome to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Matthew is locally based right here in Tulsa. Questions, comments, concerns? Call 918-460-5764 or send us an open mic using the KRMG app. Now, here's Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore.
And good Sunday evening to you. My name is Russell Mills. Thank you very much for joining us for this segment of Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. We are live and local in the big city of Tulsa on a glorious Sunday. It's been kind of crazy. War breaking out in Europe, massive convoys of truckers going through town, the market's going crazy. What do you do in times like this? Is cryptocurrency a good hedge for you? Is it a good way to, try to maybe prevent some losses or possibly even profit? Well, we have assembled a panel of experts, and when I say we, I mean Matthew J. Moore has assembled a panel of experts to go over some of the ground with us. Matt, good evening, sir. Welcome.
Russell, thank you so much. It's so good to be here today with you guys. In fact, I want to welcome all the crypto newbies, lovers, and experts. You have come to the right place. One of America's only spot for a cryptocurrency radio show. In fact, I've been in the space for probably 6 years now, and some of the people that we've had on this show and even in this room have been in it far longer than I have, but I'm here to accommodate a wonderful conversation. In fact, Bitcoin is often debated about how it should be considered, how it should be looked at, and oftentimes it's seen as a lot of different things, but things like a pristine asset, a store of value, a sound money, but can it also be a form of insurance? This is the question for today. In fact, when we talk about insurance, a lot of people expect, whether it be Canada or Ukraine, are starting to realize how valuable Bitcoin really is. In fact, I wanted to read a tweet. This was from a Ukrainian, and he posted, this was about a day or two ago. He goes, my Ukrainian credit cards don't work anymore. I'm safe physically in Kazakhstan, but all my savings are gone. Crypto is the only money I still have, and today I can say, without exaggeration, that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and NFTs are going to save my life while I can't come back home. So I have heard countless stories like that, and today on the show, we're going to talk about how Bitcoin can be an insurance policy against what has been unfolding over the last 2 years. And honestly, many thought Bitcoin would only be relevant in third world countries plagued with hyperinflation and dictators. But that's simply not the case, because we are seeing similar problems in G7 nations, particularly our friendly friends to the north in Canada. And this episode, we are proud to bring on two Canadians who can speak to this issue on a firsthand basis. And to help me navigate this conversation is my nifty and wonderful co-host, Eric Cooper. Eric, are you ready for another explosive episode?
I'm excited to bring another country into the fold, Matt.
I think we're going to have to here. Eric, before we introduce our guest today, can you kick off the conversation, or before we kick off the conversation, can you share with the audience how they might be able to hedge themselves against all the madness in the world today? Maybe a way that they can get paid in cryptocurrency.
Absolutely. This segment's brought to you by a company named Hedge. Do you have a strategy to obtain cryptocurrency on a regular basis? Do you plan to automate your dollar cost averaging? What about getting all or even part of your paycheck in cryptocurrency? Hedge is revolutionizing how you can get paid. Hedge makes it easy to automatically convert your pay into crypto. Whether you're an employer or an employee, you can get started in 4 easy steps. Start getting paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. Crypto is a long-term play. Start a strategy today. Hedge is here to make it easy to stack those sats month after month. What are you waiting for? Start living on the hedge. Check them out at gethedge.io. Again, Matthew, that is gethedge.io. cryptocurrency.io.
That's absolutely right. And if you are interested, let them know that Matt sent you. Just go to my website, mattjmoore.com. And on the homepage, scroll down. You'll find a button that says Get Hedge. And you can start that sign-up process today. Super, super easy. But let's do this, Eric. Let's dive right in. Today, also in studio with us is our regular contributor and Bitcoin miner, Charlie Spears from Nakamoto Partners. And with him is Canadian expat, whose name I will mention is Sean, but I won't mention his last name for privacy reasons. But for the sake of the show, let's go ahead and bring this to the floor here. Currently, Sean is new to Tulsa. He's very familiar with Bitcoin. He currently works remotely with Canada's most trusted Bitcoin exchange, known as Bull Bitcoin. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. So excited to have you guys with us. Please introduce yourself in your own words.
Glad to be back on the show, Matt and Eric. I'm Charlie Spears, your local Bitcoin miner with Nakamoto Partners. I also am one of the many people who organize the local Tulsa Bitcoin meetups. And I'm glad to have Sean as our featured guest this week.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm Sean. I'm a new transplant to Tulsa. I'm very glad to be here. My wife and I arrived about a month ago. We escaped Canada in September. We kind of saw what was coming down the pike there and decided to leave the country. And we have recently set up in Tulsa and hope to be here for a long time. And I'm glad to be jumping in and looking forward to educating some of the Tulsa community.
Love it. Love it. Well, Sean, we are excited to have you here in Tulsa, and I hope the welcome has been very warm, which I think it has. Can you share a little bit about what you plan to speak on March 3rd? Because we did have to reschedule the Bitcoin meetup here in Tulsa. Share with us the topic that you're going to speak on and why you chose that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie and I were talking last week, and we decided to choose the topic of the urgency of Bitcoin. And there's a lot to unpack there, but the gist of it is that Bitcoin provides protection from two big things that are going on right now. One is the extreme counterparty risk of almost every financial asset in the world. Bitcoin offers protection from that. Being able to custody Bitcoin yourself offers a lot of the protections that physical gold does, but a lot more fungibility. And so if you find yourself in a situation where counterparties that are holding the rest of your financial assets aren't as trustworthy as you maybe had hoped, Bitcoin offers potential to save you in that situation, as the Ukrainian you mentioned in the tweet there brought up. And the second is basically Bitcoin is this really unique asset in that it is completely censorship resistant, and every other asset in the world is less censorship resistant. So a lot of Canadians right now are learning that the hard way. The Canadian government has recently frozen bank accounts without warrants, and that's not something we ever thought would happen. It's real life. It feels surreal. Every day I wake up thinking it's I have trouble imagining that it's really here. And Bitcoin is real protection from that. If you hold your own Bitcoin in your own Bitcoin wallet, nobody can ever touch it.
Right. That's exactly right. And, on the next segment, we will bring on our main guest today, and his name is Greg Foss. He is also a Canadian as well, and has spent 32 years working in high-yield credit markets and is currently a full-time Bitcoin strategist at Validus Power Corp. And in the past, he even worked directly with the CFO, if I'm correct, of the Royal Bank of Canada, which is the largest bank in Canada. So, Sean, is it true that you know Greg in some capacity?
I do, yeah. Greg and I first met on Bitcoin Twitter when we both had about 70 followers or so a few years ago in the depths of the bear market. No one was really talking about Bitcoin too much. And we went for a beer just because we noticed we were talking about the same things online. And we were both living in Toronto at the time. And I mean, first of all, we hit it off, but also I just recognized right away, like, wait till everyone gets a load of this guy. He is just full of stories. He has so much experience in the debt markets. He really understands what's happening in the world right now in a way that almost nobody else does. Very, very few people do. And I'm excited for you guys to hear from him.
This is going to be fun. We've got a lot more to unpack in these next few segments. And coming up, like I said, we got Greg Foss, and he's going to share with us his thoughts on the current state of the credit markets, how it relates to Bitcoin, and in Greg's words, Bitcoin is an IQ test in risk management. He is about to take us to school, and I'm ready. So I hope you guys are ready. I hope Tulsa's ready, and even the world, because we got listeners from all around the world. You don't want to miss this insightful interview. Stay tuned, and don't forget, if you need somebody to hold your hand through this space, just go to mattjmoore.com, and we can easily set up a consultation. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, we got to take a quick time out. You are listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. I'm interested to hear more about what is going to happen with all the craziness in the world and how we can use some of these new technologies and these new currencies, if you will, or assets to, well, hedge the possibility of losing money with all that volatility. So stick around. It's going to be an interesting conversation. You're listening to 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. Welcome back to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. I'm Russell Mills. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Interesting conversation already. I can't wait to hear where it goes. We've got a couple of international experts on Bitcoin who are joining the panel this evening. Let's get right to it. Here is your host, Matthew J. Moore. Hey, Matt.
Hey. We're back live with you guys, bringing some Bitcoin action. So stay put. We got a wonderful conversation like Russell was saying. But to help me navigate this journey and conversation is my co-host, Eric Cooper. Eric, welcome back, man.
I am always happy to be here on a Sunday evening.
Especially when you say that and there's a smile on your face.
I love it.
All right, well, let's do this. Also in studio is Bitcoin miner Charlie Spears with Nakamoto Partners and Canadian expat who we will call Sean. His name is Sean, but I won't mention his last name. He works for, he's a full-time Bitcoiner, works for one of Canadians' biggest or best trusted Bitcoin exchange known as Bull Bitcoin. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Thanks for having me.
Love it.
You know, Matt, we usually talk about the past places you can find all the past episodes, KRMG On Demand, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, etc. I also want to say, if you want to go on KRMG.com or the app, and if you guys ever have a question for us, there is an on the mic or a button that you can leave a question. You can find an email Matt at mattjmoore.com. So, we have a lot of content. We're going to have great stuff today, so I'll shut up here in a second. But if you guys do have questions, please reach out to us and also check out all the old episodes.
That's right. Yeah, we got you guys covered. And we're going to go ahead and start the main course here. And on the line is Greg Foss. And Greg is a Canadian as well and has spent 32 years working in high-yield credit markets and is currently a full-time Bitcoin strategist at Validus Power Corp. In the past, he even worked directly with the CFO of the Royal Bank of Canada, which is the largest bank in Canada. Greg, welcome to one of America's only crypto radio shows. We are ready to go to school. Are you ready to teach us?
Hi, gentlemen. I certainly am. Thanks so much for having me.
I love it. Well, Greg, let's start here. You make a fantastic point that Bitcoin is insurance against global fiat. I've listened to your interviews, and I love your take on this subject. But many people listening today don't have the same perspective or have the same information that I do. In fact, many people are still treating Bitcoin as a risk-on asset like a tech stock. But you and I, we would maybe have a different view on this. Can you, maybe mention, you mention often that Bitcoin is an IQ test in risk management and that math can be hard for many. Can you make your case to our audience about why Bitcoin is a form of insurance?
Yeah, certainly. Math is hard for many people, but I'm not going to get too deep into math. I often like to say it's no more difficult than grade 11 math. We are currently in a global debt spiral that makes it 100% certain that all fiat currencies will debase over time. Again, 100% certainty, because it's impossible that global economies grow as fast as even the expanding debt coupon on the accumulated debt. I've lived through 4 successive financial crises in my career. You mentioned my affiliation with the CFO of the Royal Bank of Canada, and that was back in 1988, believe it or not. So over 30 years ago, I returned from Cornell University in upstate New York back to my hometown of Montreal. And I worked for the Royal Bank of Canada, and one of my first projects was on a Latin American debt portfolio that Royal Bank of Canada, like all the money center banks globally, were exposed to too much Latin American debt that had defaulted. And lo and behold, Royal Bank of Canada was insolvent. Now, for your listeners, that's basically the precursor to bankruptcy. And that's a pretty scary situation for the largest financial institution in Canada. But it was no different than major money-centered banks at the time in the United States, like Manufacturers Hanover, Chase Manhattan, Bankers Trust, all of which are banks that have been acquired by bigger banks. Nonetheless, the global financial crisis in 1988 was real because of Latin American debt. And I've been managing risk or managing credit risk through 4 successive financial crises. The one after 1988 was 1998. That was long-term capital management, where Wall Street was basically buying insurance from a large hedge fund in New York, managed by 2 Nobel Prize-winning Nobel laureates, and they were levered 99-1. So without getting too granular here, guys, every successive financial crisis becomes worse. It means that debt is transferred from the financial system onto the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve and the government. So the big financial crisis, 2008, 2009, we had a chance as a global economy to dig ourselves out of that debt that we accumulated, but we never did. Every time we tried to take our foot off the pedal, there was a taper tantrum. And when the COVID crisis, the 4th crisis, hit in 2020, we are now in what I term QE infinity, quantitative easing infinity, because it is mathematically required that the Federal Reserve prints money to solve the debt spiral. So my answer is very simple. Why is Bitcoin insurance? Bitcoin is insurance against the Fiat Ponzi. And the Fiat Ponzi exists because the Fed and other central banks can print money to solve the shenanigans of bankers who continuously take excessive risk and then get bailed out and socialized losses.
Hey, Greg, we've mentioned that many times on the show that we feel the Fed is painted into a little bit of a corner when it comes to interest rate hikes and asset purchases. You know, can you share your thoughts on the Fed's next move, considering private and public debt levels and how war breaking out with Russia and Ukraine? You know, what do you think they will do at their next meeting, considering the world events?
Well, great question. How about we talk about the next? Well, so far they're predicting 7 rate hikes. How about rather than focusing on the next one, I think they may try to raise. I don't think they succeed in getting past 2 successive rate hikes before the markets absolutely spiral. When I say the markets, I mean the equity markets spiral downwards, and QE infinity will have to resume. So without specifically talking about the absolute next Fed meeting, increased risks and geopolitical risks around the globe because of Russia and Ukraine, etc., because of things like we have potentially stagflation, right? I believe the Fed will be restricted to at most 2 rate hikes before they have to take their foot off the brake and resume their quantitative easing.
Well, yeah, I would agree with you there. In fact, lots is going on. In fact, whether you're in Canada or Ukraine, Bitcoin is something to consider. You've got even the famous Canadian Jordan Peterson, who was recently advised by a direct military contact that he should take his money out of the banking system because the situation is far worse than what we are being told. That's what he, was told. This is all up to each one of you. I'm not giving you financial advice, but stay put, because we're going to talk more with Greg Foss, and we're going to pick his brain on some of this stuff. You really don't want to miss this. We got more, so stay put.
All right, you are listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. We're live and local in Tulsa, Oklahoma on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. And a question I'm going to throw at the guys, and I don't know if they're ready for this or not, but I'll spin it anyway. I'm hearing that they're talking about taking Russia off the SWIFT system. Now, that would essentially be something that people can do to you if you're part of this worldwide international banking system. But what if you were in Bitcoin? There'd be really no way for them to do that to you, right? And that is one of the reasons why these guys are interested in going that direction. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack, so stay with us. This is Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. You're listening on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk. Oh, welcome back to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Russell Mills checking in with you. You're caught up on the news and the weather. It is a crazy world out there, and we are uncovering the secrets behind cryptocurrencies, but also sort of exploring some of the rather plain truths about our current financial system. And we're doing it with a panel of experts that we have assembled, and it's an international panel today, starring our host, Matthew J. Moore. Hey, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Russell. I really appreciate it. I love Sundays. I love doing this show, and the people that we bring on, always phenomenal. In fact, I was fangirling a little bit about Greg Foss coming on. So super smart guy. I love the content he pushes out there. But we also have another Canadian in studio. He's an expat. His name is Sean. And the reason why, if you were listening to the show earlier, wondering why aren't you saying his last name? Why is it so private? Well, as you guys have probably figured out, there's a lot of Canadians, whether they donated to the Freedom Convoy or whether they participated in the Freedom Convoy. There's a lot of political persecution going on right now due to the financial situation. A lot of bank accounts were getting frozen. People were being put on lists. And so, we've got some Canadians involved in Bitcoin. We got some Canadians who love, just personal freedom. So we're going to try to limit the exposure there. And that's why we didn't mention Sean's last name there. But definitely makes for an interesting conversation. And also in studio is my co-host, Eric Cooper, and our local contributor and Bitcoin miner, Charlie Spears. So
howdy. Yeah. And if you want to meet Sean in person, this Thursday is the Meetup. He's our featured speaker. I'm very excited to have him talk.
Absolutely. I'm stoked about talking about that before we close out the episode as well. I think Sean's going to have a lot of great stuff to say. Well, let's go ahead and kick this back off. On the line with us is our main guest, and his name is Greg Foss. He is also Canadian, has spent 32 years working in high-yield credit markets, and is currently a full-time Bitcoin strategist at Validus Power Corp. Greg, I wanted to start at this question here. I found this fascinating. In the past, you've mentioned that you think Canada might be the first G7 country to go bust financially. Can you, at that point, when you were working, you mentioned about the Royal Bank of Canada. You had mentioned that the CFO told you to be quiet about them being in an insolvent situation. Can you share, a little bit of details on why you think Canada is going to be the first G7 nation to go bust?
Certainly. So I'm a proud Canadian, and I don't want that to be the case. I need to be clear. However, I'm also an engineer by training, and I rely on mathematics, and mathematics is truth, right? Mathematics does not lie. So let me start by saying every fiat issuing country will eventually go bankrupt. That's pure math. The United States is most likely to be the last fiat country to experience financial distress. But in the context of G7 nations, of which Canada is a proud member, we are the weakest financially due to our credit metrics. Things like total debt to GDP or total Canadian GDP. Things like a prime minister who says stuff like the budget will balance itself. These are very dangerous utterances from the CEO of a country. And if I'm an international lender, I get concerned because budgets do not balance themselves. There are weaker European G7 countries like Italy. The difference is Italy has the backing of the European Central Bank, and Canada does not. So while I don't want it to be the case, I am a probabilities-based risk manager, and I suggest that Canada has the highest probability of being the first G7 nation to fail. But I also have to couch it with the fact that all G7 countries and fiat issuing debtor nations will also fail.
Greg, thank you very much for joining us on the show. This is Charlie. I'm a Bitcoin miner here in Tulsa with Nakamoto Partners. We actually do a similar thing to Validus Power, and I kind of want to dive deep a bit more specifically on that, because you're also getting in the infrastructure game because of how it relates to Bitcoin mining. Can you talk about Bitcoin mining and the game theory around it as an infrastructure play against this macroeconomic backdrop?
Yeah, what a great question, Charlie. So I'm a firm believer in Bitcoin as being the purest form of collateral that humans have ever invented. In my opinion, it is pristine capital and pristine collateral. And in that respect, every single nation state should consider putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet as a store of value for the population, much like central banks in the past have put gold on their balance sheet. So countries like Canada that have plentiful natural resources, energy natural resources to produce proof of work, which is Bitcoin, it's my opinion that it would be a strategically smart move to start storing Bitcoin on the balance sheet using our natural resource advantages. And Canada sold all our gold. We currently hold no gold, yet we have natural resource energy, including renewable resource like hydro energy that can be used to mine Bitcoin, create wealth for all of our citizens, and create insurance against the demise of other central bank countries, which would cause contagion in the global financial marketplace.
Greg, in the past, you've mentioned that credit is the dog and equity is the tail. Can you go a little bit more in detail on that perspective for our audience?
Credit is a prior claim in the capital structure, which means that in the event of a bankruptcy, unless the debt of a company is worth 100 cents on the dollar, the equity is worthless. And in that respect, you have to be cognizant as an equity investor what the debt market feels about your senior claim. So if the bonds of a company are trading at distressed levels, I would suggest the equity is an option. It is not equity as a component of a capital structure that is sustainable. When you look at credit in the financial markets, counterparty risk with financial institutions, it is always the credit gurgling of the financial system which causes equity markets to puke, okay? All you have to do is look at things like LIBOR. All you have to do is look at things like the TED spread. All of these sound a little geeky from a traditional listener perspective, but trust me, I've spent over 30 years in these markets. It's like clockwork. When the credit markets get sick, the equity markets absolutely get destroyed because credit is a senior claim, and more importantly, credit markets are about 4 times the size of the equity markets. And credit guys like myself can hedge their risk by shorting equities, by purchasing put options on equities, and the equity guys get run over and they have no idea what's going on.
All great points, Greg. And in fact, we got a couple minutes before we go to break, but this is going to be a question for both you and Sean. When it comes to Bitcoin and all the noise, what message do you want people to hear loud and clear? What should people be paying attention to? And we got about 3 minutes.
Well, I'll start. I would say this. If you own 0 Bitcoin, you are taking far more risk than if you have a portion of a diversified portfolio invested in Bitcoin. I suggest you start with a weighting between 5 and 10% of your overall portfolio, which will actually reduce portfolio risk and increase potential returns. Again, if you own 0 Bitcoin, you are taking excessive risk versus owning a proper portfolio allocation.
Sean, go ahead.
Yeah. I would just echo what Greg said there, and I would follow it up by saying, if you want to own Bitcoin, you have to actually own Bitcoin. If you own Bitcoin that's held on an exchange, what you have is actually a Bitcoin-denominated liability held by a third party, and you're entering into the same game of counterparty risk that you are in the rest of the financial system. So it's just vitally important that you self-custody your Bitcoin. So if you're going to put some allocation of your portfolio into Bitcoin, it has to be into a private wallet.
Yeah. And especially with what you guys are experiencing in Canada and in other places around the world, it's not just simply downloading Coinbase on your phone and making a purchase. You got to go the extra step and you got to self-custody it. And you got to get your own wallet, preferably maybe a cold storage wallet. But these are all things to consider. And, when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. But, this space can be new and confusing. So if you want somebody to hold your hand and you live here locally, go to mattjmoore.com. I'd be happy to teach you. I love teaching people how to fish.
All right, we are going to take a quick time out, but I'm going to give you something to chew on while you're listening to this advertisement. We started this show with a story about a Ukrainian man who found himself suddenly in Kazakhstan with no access to his bank accounts, but he had access to his Bitcoin wallet. And he said Bitcoin's going to save his life. Now, you just chew on that for a moment. We'll take a quick time out, but we'll be back with more of this interesting conversation. You're listening to Cryptocurrencies with Matthew J. Moore on 102.3 KRMG Tulsa's News and Talk. Russell Mills, this has been a really interesting segment. And by the way, I know that Eric mentioned it earlier, but I will remind you, if you've ever missed one of these shows, and this is episode, what are we at, 37, guys?
38.
Episode 38. There is a lot that you can listen to and learn a lot about this stuff, and most of it is in English even I can understand. I'm not going to say all of it. I'm still not sure what stacking sats is or why the pill I took was orange, but that's okay. What I do know is I know a guy who can explain all that stuff to me, and his name is Matthew J. Moore. Hey, Matt.
Hey, thank you so much, Russell. Yeah, we have a blast all the time, and definitely love being pumped up for this show, as you can tell with our theme music. But I want to welcome you guys back to one of America's only cryptocurrency radio shows. And in studio with me is also my wonderful co-host, Eric Cooper. Eric, say hello.
Hello.
Along with our regular contributor and Bitcoin miner, Charlie Spears.
Howdy, y'all.
And Sean, who works for an exchange, one of Canada's most prominent Bitcoin exchanges, Bull Bitcoin. He is new to Tulsa, and so he is taking shelter in the wonderful state of Oklahoma. Sean, good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And Sean's been here for 30 days, so he just got to see the schizophrenic weather of Oklahoma, just like firsthand.
Jumping in the deep end, Sean.
I know. It's spring, it's winter, it's spring, it's winter. No, so actually that's a good point. In fact, this show is made possible by our wonderful sponsors. And today, this last segment is brought to you by our newest and local sponsor. Currently, we are in the dead of winter, and that salt and sand on the roads can be very, very brutal and unfortunate for your car. So, it's important to get that stuff off your car as soon as possible. That's why this segment is brought to you by Bubble Up Car Wash in Broken Arrow off 470 East Kenosha Street. They are Broken Arrow's newest locally owned car wash with all the bells and whistles to make your car clean, shiny, and dry. So come take advantage of their free vacuums, air wands, and towels. They have unlimited wash plans starting at $19.99 a month, and you can add family members for $15 a month per vehicle. So, got those winter blues? Come over to cheer up at Bubble Up. And who knows, you might catch a glimpse of their family dog, Bentley, the Bubble Up pup. So, if you want to read or check them out, just go to www.mybubbleup.com. So, today, we are continuing a conversation with our wonderful guest. His name is Greg Foss. And Greg, I want to welcome you back to the show, but I wanted to start with this question here. We definitely want people to know where to find you. So if people are listening and they like what you've had to say, where would you point them?
Well, thanks again for having me, guys. You know what? I'm 58 years old, and I've just really discovered the beauty of Twitter. That might be the best place to follow me. My Twitter handle is @Foss, Greg Foss. So FOSSGREGFOSS.
Greg, now you're going to be a keynote speaker at the Bitcoin in Miami come April. What do you plan on focusing your talking points about?
Well, you know, boy, the world's changing fast, isn't it, gentlemen?
Yeah.
So there'll be plenty to talk about. But I like to paint things in a historical perspective. This is so important to me. I have 3 children, and I believe Bitcoin to be the best asymmetric investment opportunity I've ever seen in my over 30 years of managing risk. So it'll focus on that topic, whether it's under the banner of something like why Bitcoin is the perfect exotic option, or whether it's just our experience, Sean, and my experience in Canada, where you never thought that your bank accounts could get frozen until they do. So I'll be speaking in Miami. I look forward to it. I try and share my experience. I believe I have a unique perspective, and that comes with 30 years of battling it out through various financial crises that come along like a bus, right? They come along. Successive financial crises are a fact of life, and you need insurance to deal with those.
Yeah, no, that's so true. In fact, you bring a lot of wisdom to the table, and I highly encourage people to follow you on Twitter, follow your work. It's very, very fascinating stuff, and it's been an absolute honor to have you on the show today. I definitely would love to have you back on in the future to chat with us about Bitcoin on the radio. And, we will see you guys in Miami. We're going to be we're media partners with the conference, and so look forward to the interviews that we'll get to do. So hopefully we run into you, Greg, at the Bitcoin conference. We'll be the guys walking around with the shirts that say, "Ask me about my Bitcoin radio show." So got a lot of great attention last time. But Greg, thank you so much. Any last words?
I look forward to seeing you guys in Miami, and thanks for everything you do. It's an education process, gentlemen and ladies who are listening. This is about removing the fiat shackles and understanding that Bitcoin is the most beautiful financial technology that I have ever seen in my history of managing risk. So thanks again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you're interested in going to the conference, we've got discounts on my website, mattjmoore.com. And if you can't afford to go to the one in Miami, we definitely have Bitcoin Day coming up March 26th in Oklahoma City. Information's on my website as well. And we've got a Tulsa Bitcoin meetup. So before we close out the show, Charlie, why don't you give us the details on the Bitcoin meetup for Tulsa?
Yeah, you betcha. We had to postpone last month's Bitcoin meetup to this Thursday, which is at the same place, Bar 473 up at Admiral and Lewis. Bar 473 at 7 o'clock p.m. this Thursday. We have Sean here is in the studio with us talking about why Bitcoin is urgent. And, we can talk about this, we're on the radio and you can be listening to us, but it really is something different to meet in person and talk to other Bitcoiners. That's why we do the Bitcoin 22 in Miami. That's why we do these monthly Bitcoin meetups. That's why we have I'll be down there with you, Matt, at Bitcoin Day in Oklahoma City. It's a lot more compelling to talk to people in person. That's why we do the Bitcoin meetup. So this Thursday, Bar 473, 7 p.m.
Sean, any last words?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've always found it really the most helpful thing for learning about Bitcoin is to sit down with someone who knows what they're talking about and just ask them questions. So come on out, meet us in person, make friends with some other Bitcoiners who'll be there and be able to answer your questions. My favorite thing in the world to do is help answer the questions of newcomers.
Love it, love it. Well, guys, we will see you next Sunday. And you can always check us out at all the streaming platforms. We're all over the place. So we'll see you next week.
All right, so here's a couple things to jot down real quick. Got a pencil? All right, if you'd like to follow Greg Foss on Twitter, once again, it's Foss, Greg Foss. Like Bond, James Bond? Foss, Greg Foss. is his Twitter handle. If you want to follow Matt's stuff or maybe get a discount to that Bitcoin conference in Miami, Florida, woot, 10% off, sure. Just get over to mattjmoore.com. Remember, it's Moore with 2 O's. And we will be here next Sunday, bright and shiny, ready to rock at 5 o'clock for more Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore on 102.3 KRMG, Tulsa's News and Talk.